This is WGN Midday News.
On this day in 1933, Carlyn Berghoff secured the first two liquor licenses issued by the city, one for the Berghoff Bar, the other for the Berghoff Restaurant. Men flooded to the bar to celebrate the repeal. And until 1969, the Berghoff was the longest-standing men-only bar in the nation, until something happened. We're going to tell you about what that was in just a minute. Carlyn Berghoff is CEO of the Berghoff Catering Restaurant Group. She's joined by the Chicago History Museum's Director of Curatorial Affairs, John Russick. Thank you both for coming in. Carlyn, not being able to get a beer at the Berghoff is sort of like not being able to get a hamburger at McDonald's. How did the Berghoff survive Prohibition?
Well, it was a really tumultuous time for my family, because that was all we did. We brewed beer.
Yeah.
And we had 3 saloons in Chicago, and this was devastating news to my family. So they shut down 2 of the saloons. They started brewing near beer and root beer, grape soda, a tonic, and worked off of that for, almost 13 years before they even had a chance to start doing what they did.
Amazing they survived. John, Chicago was a rowdy place during Prohibition, wasn't it? And even rowdier when the Volstead Act was repealed. Tell me about that.
Oh, well, when the Volstead Act was repealed, there were lines around the block for some of the reopening saloons. The breweries had streams of cars, as many as 3 miles away, waiting to get to the brewery to get their supply. Yeah,
because we know this city did not take to Prohibition very well, and the Berghoff did have its own brewery ready to go, didn't it? Tell me about your grandfather getting the first liquor license.
Well, he was a real go-getter.
Great-grandfather.
Yes, he was my great-grandfather. And he, one of his philosophies was, that has trickled down, 4 generations to me, was you have to keep reinventing yourself and coming up with things to do. Well, one of his buddies at the time was Oscar Mayer. And Oscar Mayer was really good friends with the mayor of Chicago at the time. And Oscar Mayer said, we're going to march ourselves over to City Hall. We're going to wait until they're ready to issue those liquor licenses. We're going to sit there no matter how long it takes, and you're going to get the first liquor license. So they sat there and waited until they were given the okay by the mayor to get that liquor license.
I think what you're telling me is he might have been a little politically connected back in those days, you think?
Well, I think so, but he did wait, and he was a very forthright guy. He didn't go for any of the backdoor bootlegging stuff when Prohibition was going on.
But in addition to the history of Prohibition, the Berghoff also figures very prominently in the history of women's rights. This was a men-only place until 1969. What happened?
Gloria Steinem set forth for us gals, and she buckled right up to that bar in 1969 with Now and demanded to be served, a beverage. And my dad was the presiding manager that day, and it wasn't that my dad didn't want women in the bar, but my dad wasn't feeling confident to let that happen. It kind of had to happen on its own. So he kind of hid in the office all day while the women kind of just streamed in and upset the men a lot. But, after that day, women started going to the bar all the time.
Sure. What do you think your great-grandfather would say about a woman running the joint now?
Well, I think he's pretty happy because the joint still exists.
Well, so absolutely. Yeah. And brewing some very fine beers.
And serving some pretty fabulous food.
Well, congratulations to both of you for keeping the tradition alive, keeping a wonderful family business going all these generations, because it certainly dates back well before Prohibition. And thank you.
I think we should taste, and we should proast today, because, we couldn't do this 78 years ago. So let's have a drink. And this was the original brew that was the most popular, the dark. And I think we should have a toast
I'll never turn you down. Congratulations again, and for your good work at the Chicago Museum of History.
It's a new beer.
Prost.
To the Berghoff.
Yes.
Carlyn Berghoff, John Russick, thanks so much for coming in. To learn more about the restaurant, check out their website, theberghoff.com. By the way, if you missed this segment, you can re-watch it on WGNTV.com/midday. Coming up next in the Midday Fix, TV-inspired fashions and